begins by inclusion in the decision making, involving the domestic in decision making. Like Kathy here is a stay-at-home mother. Now she's involved in many of the things that are going to happen. But if you leave them out, then you'll never know what that means. So about the national community, the nation, the community, and the household. What about the budgets? What about the planning? What about the policy? Who is the voice? So standing in the nation, how are they dealing with their children? How are they dealing with unpaid work? I am able to do that. And if I'm working in agriculture like my friend here, how am I going to make it easier for this person who is doing unpaid work to get involved in agriculture? What's the easiest way? You know, at home, someone came and showed us how to grow things in a sack. We didn't know that. So we get carrots in a sack, and we're able to do that, even if it's a small place. We also have to emulate other country effort. One country that I read is Uruguay, where they have the Uruguay Care Act. All children and persons with disability and the elderly have the right to get care. That's a right. So the state provides those services close to them so that they can get the care. Now, when you have services that take care of children, that take care of the elderly, it definitely reduces and redistributes this work that somebody has to do. It's also important to review and revise the contribution-based pension schemes. I told you I'm on a pension scheme right now. I get paid because I worked in the bank for 22 years. Now they're paying me for the rest of my life. I get a monthly pension. So this unpaid woman, who is going to give her that? So when she retires, what will happen? When her children go away, what's going to happen? The tax policies, the social security. You know, I have a niece who works with NSSF, and she tells me they are paying out the money. They're paying out this midterm. So what happens to this woman who is doing so much for the nation, and she is not getting any money from NSSF? So representation, who's going to speak for those people? Right? Then also employers, they're supposed to adhere to work support. How are you supporting me as a woman working, and yet I have to do so much other work, underpaid? How am I going to get appropriate remuneration? What about parental leave? I was telling my colleagues here that I've just got a little grandson. He's being born in Ghana. Was born in Ghana a few minutes ago. And so my son had to get 2 weeks off. Parental leave, they give in Ghana, they give 2 weeks. In Uganda, they give 4 days. So you can imagine 4 days, and some people don't even take that leave. But as an employer, how do I help this man ensure that he goes home and helps? So that's parental leave. Sometimes we need to have things like family care leave. My mother, my father is ill. Can I take some leave with my husband so that we can take care of this elderly person? So that is the employer adhering to work support. And I've already talked about the child care policies at work, and I'm sure the people in the bank where I used to work are very happy for that because they have flex hours. So many of them leave at 12:30 per day until the child is 9 months old. I wish others could pick that up as well. It requires policy action to strengthen opportunities and outcomes for women because we have a world that is changing. The pandemic showed us that you can work at home and actually do a good job. So if I can work at home, it's a changing world of work. How can I benefit from that? So supporting this woman, the right to get income and wealth without being discriminated. So if I walk into my home, I have a right to income. How am I going to get that income? Okay? How am I going to be supported? We need support groups, we need policies, we need policies on work hours, we need policies on flex time, we need policies on unpaid work. We need also to increase our negotiating power in the household. So as I end, it's important to take care of you. So remain relevant, reskill, retrain to protect yourself. What do I need right now? I might need to be at home. How am I going to ensure that this, whatever I'm doing, is also taking care of my career? So continue education. We always learn. There are classes online right now. I can be at home and take a class. I can be at home and take an evening class. I remember we lived abroad for about 3 years, and that's when I did my master's. But my husband was working during the day, and I did evening classes. So I would leave the children with him. From 4 o'clock onward, I was in school until 10 p.m. And that's how I got my master's. So I've redistributed, I've reduced the work, and I'm still looking after my career. So don't forget about you. Take care. You are valuable. It may mean that you adjust to new requirements and policies. It may mean that you are advocating for you. You have 4 children. You are the right person to advocate at your workplace. What should be done? Maybe they should give us leave for 6 months. Paid leave, so that you can take care of your child for 6 months. Paid. That's a new policy. But somebody has to advocate for it. And also try practical hand-on skills. And I will also encourage those who are employers to find friendly policies and practices. Maybe give these people, these women, part-time jobs, remote working, adjusted and flex hours. Maybe they need time off, medical support for their sick children, or sick spouses or sick parents. Don't stigmatize them. Don't discriminate them. Because there are many workplaces where when you show up, my child is sick, they say, please go home and don't come back. Yeah. So prevent that discrimination. Give support, give benefits where they're due, give employee recognition. This is a woman with 4 children. I mean, I have 4 children, so I know what I'm talking about. 4 children and now 6 grandchildren. She needs recognition. She needs to be recognized. So reward her and value her. And I was thankful to God that the nation recognized me. I got an award from the HE president on Women's Day. Now, I wish they would do that more often, the recognition. So lastly, I just want you to urge you, be the voice. Be the voice. Be the voice of this work that is so essential to the whole nation, to the whole world. Thank you so much.
Wow. Thank you very much, Dr. Ruth Senyonyi, for that enlightening presentation. I'm sure we've all been edified. When you started speaking, I found it disturbing that the reality of the unpaid care and domestic work is at odds with a woman's right to employment, meaningful employment and remuneration for that purpose. And when you spoke about Maria Carmona's quote, the director, was she the ED of UNRISD? When she talked about how much work women do, it reminded me of the premise of the Superman movies. Now, Superman is, for those that maybe don't know about it, he's this superhero who's hailed as this one man who can be in the office and hear a call and respond to it on the spot. Go, deal with it, come back and meet all his responsibilities. Superman is Superman because he's a great journalist in his day job, and he does everything else when he's not in the office. And I now know why it was just one Superman. Because if this movie was written about women, it would be a movie that has a domestic franchise in every household. We have each of those people in our households, and we didn't even realize it. We have superheroes amongst us. And that's why Superman is a hero, because he was a man. And they thought it was commendable that they should recognize it. Now, when you talked about the value, and you talk about 21 million jobs lying in wait, there is a statistic. You gave 10%, but there's another one that gave 14% of the women's contribution annually to the global economy as 10 trillion US dollars. What that says is that if all the women put their labor together and it was quantified, the economy is just as big as that of China, comes next to China. That's amazing. That is work that needs to be recognized. And you parted with a call to action to be the voice. And we know that when you know better, you do better. And you talked about the groundnuts, how you pounded them, and you're not willing to do it anymore. For many other women, that's a different experience, that they're not willing to pass on to the next generation in its original format. Not that it should not be done, but because it can be done better and in a more cost-efficient way. And when I say cost, not just finances, also with the time, because finances can always be recovered, but time can never be recovered. So we know the 3 R's of dealing with trash. It's everywhere. Reduce, reuse, recycle. Everybody sings it. There are songs about it. But we don't know as well the 3 R's of how to handle the women and the people who are working in our societies without any pay and contributing, who could be contributing to the development of the countries. So thank you for shining light on the redistribution, recognition, and reduction of the unpaid care and domestic work. Thank you very much. Now, I'll now turn to a lady who's joining us today, called Mrs. Sheila Ehabi, who is one of the superwomen we have talked about, and she's here to share with us a testimonial on her own experience. Please welcome her and give her your kind attention. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Is it good afternoon? Still good morning. Good morning, everyone. Those that are watching all over, I am so honored to be part of this today. As a stay-home mother, she has called me Sheila Ehabi, but I like using my maiden name. I'm called Sheila Muhumuza. Ehabi was attached, but I really love my name. And I'm glad to see my teacher in Beranyanji, yeah. I'm a mother of 4 boys, proudly a mother of 4 boys with no regrets. I think God heard my prayers. I never prayed for girls, I only prayed for boys. And I stopped working. I was literally forced to stop working in 2011. So since 2011 up to today, the 2nd, I'm at home. It has had its challenges, as in plenty, but it has also its benefits at the end of the day. The benefits being that I've been able to raise my boys the way I want them to grow, so that tomorrow when they're husbands, they know what to do. And we have worked together. None of my sons does, all of them know what they are supposed to do. And that's the impact I'm proud of, that I'm able to help them know what they are supposed to do. Help them know that they shouldn't take life for granted or things for granted. And raise them in a way I would say, some of us were raised in families where you'd hear like your dad coming and then you would just go and disappear in some corner somewhere. Because there was this fear, but for me and my boys, we are good. We are very good. And I thank God for that. its challenges, it is really draining. Plenty. Draining. You lose your self-worth, I would say. Self-worth. Whenever I think about it, I'm sorry, I become emotional. You lose your self-worth at the end of the day. Every day it is draining. And no one will take notice. They'll keep saying, hi, Sheila, hi, hi, hi. And you also put on this smile, hi. But inwardly, you're dying bit by bit. Apart from those you'll be able to share with, it is really draining that you put in all. You wake up in the morning and do everything. Like doctor said, there's a way God created a woman. Like 24/7, your mind is busy working. You're doing this, you're doing that, you're doing that, you're doing that. Then this one is crying, this one is asking you for this, then pulling you this side, then you have to answer. Then you have you have like a husband who will come and say, where is my shirt? And you're like, oh my God, doesn't he know where it is? And no one is bothered about you as an individual. The time I was sharing with Kathy, I was like, I don't know when the last time I went. I can't recall the last time I went out and have the me time. I cannot remember. It is 208. I just cannot remember. But somehow you find yourself every day. It is the same thing, the same thing, the same thing, the same thing. But I thank God for opportunities like this. They help us come out and speak and be able to encourage somebody somewhere who might think it is all bad. It is not all bad. Once you know that there's a positive impact in some of the things that you have done, that you have sacrificed. It in a way pushes you to do it. But as you look ahead, look for opportunities, rediscover yourself, rediscover your potential, and be able to come out and say, this is me, this is what I can do. I'm not a lost cause. Because there's a time when my character is when I'm so jolly, and at times when I withdraw completely, and I know that is not good, but sometimes there's when you need to just have, you can't have the me time out there, maybe you have the me time somewhere in a room and you lock it and you say this is our bathroom. Oh yeah, but I thank God for the opportunity. I'm sorry, I'm emotional.
Thank you, Sheila. Thank you for sharing so deeply. Your passion is coming out through your eyes right now. We can feel your heart. We've heard your words. And we've shared through that your experience as a stay-home mom. It's easy for people to hear about this person or this category of people and think they are a non-entity or a group of women that does not deserve attention and care. You talked about self-worth, and on Sundays we go to church and we get reminded that we are daughters of the King. When you're a daughter of the King, what's a daughter of the King doing? What are her entitlements? The daughter of the King is lost in the hullabaloo of daily work. She's in the kitchen, she's scrubbing pots, she's planting, she's raising children. And when you talk about children, they are your children, other children, including sometimes your mother-in-law's children, which might not always be acceptable, but it is a reality. And that is what is happening. That's what's on the ground. But what has come out very strongly from your presentation is that sacrifice shouldn't put an end to the person that the woman is. You are complete in and of yourself. You have roles. And like Dr. Senyonyi said, rediscover yourself, reskill yourself. And you called it me time. Find time for yourself. Thank you very much, Sheila. Yes, you're welcome. Now, on the two presenters have given us so much to chew on that the online audience is still a little mute. However, we have flowers for the two presenters from Sharon, who says she's blessed to be here, and this has been a great presentation. We have, oh, I see a familiar name from one Patrick Muchibi. Yes, that's a familiar name. He says that's a great presentation and moderation. Now we know he's saving his own life, yes. He says he believes that this opens up a bigger discussion regarding the different roles each gender plays as we understand them today. Congratulations, ladies. And just before we move on to the next point, I will give a personal experience because I've just read Patrick Muchibi. For those I don't know, that is my husband. Like I said, he's looking out for himself now. But he is right. When we have two children together. And when my first child was born, I was new to the motherhood thing. And I'm one of the women that opted to stay home. I faced a lot of ridicule from people I had trained with because my background is legal. And everybody asked me, how can you leave your law degree and stay at home? To do nothing. Now, I was one of those that was empowered by my husband to stay at home because he offered literal support, not just financial. He would go to his government job up to 3 p.m. He took his paternity leave, and he would come home, and the baby was his business for the night shift. That's my personal experience. So it is possible. These things can be done. And people have this thing, they will say that that's only men from a certain region. No, my husband is a Muganda. He is a Muganda, yes. If you know the stereotype, then you know that it can be defied with experience. So now we're going to take a short break to ponder on what has happened as we prepare for our next speaker, Advocate Anita Kidumuhanguzi. We'll be right back. Thank you. While we're still on, we have Pamela Peace Namakula, who's online, who says, wow, that's very inspiring and a great presentation. Thank you so much for the wonderful topic. And she sends her blessings. We have Esther Meda, who's reaching us from Nairobi. Says, thank you for putting this online. She's listening in from Kenya, and she's learning so much from you. Thank you, ladies. And she also sends her blessings. Now, Anita is ready for us, and I hope we are just as ready for her. Anita, you're welcome. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Cynthia. Maybe before I dive into my presentation, my biggest take-home from the previous guest speaker is I'm going to start charging for breakfast. So I'm just putting out a notice to the members of my household. Starting tomorrow, you have to pay. So anyway, the purpose of my presentation is basically to create an awareness on the plight of unpaid care work, especially the women, so that people can lobby government for laws and policies that will address their plight and help in eradicating poverty. Just like our guest speaker had earlier on explained, but for emphasis' sake, I'll go through the definitions so that we're clear on what unpaid care work is. It refers to all unpaid services provided within a household for its members, including care of persons, housework, and voluntary community work. These activities are considered work because theoretically one could pay a third person to perform them, but even still when you pay a third person, remember you still have to supervise them. So it's still work, it still comes back to you. They also take time, which is a key resource for work. When we look at the term unpaid, it refers to an individual performing an activity which is not remunerated. If we look at the term care, it's the activity provided is necessary for the health, well-being, maintenance, and protection of someone or something in the domestic place. If we look at work, it's the activity involved mentally or physical effort and is costly in time, in terms of time resources. So when we look at gender inequalities in unpaid domestic work, the face of unpaid care work is basically female, and that is due to the gender norms, stereotypes, and patriarchy. The day-to-day lives of women around the world share one important characteristic, and that is unpaid care work, which is basically seen as a female responsibility. Research has shown across the world that women spend on average between 3 and 6 hours on unpaid care activities, while men spend between half an hour and 2 hours. That's if you're lucky. Women are more involved in terms of participation and time devoted to unpaid care work. For example, in Uganda, 18.2% of women are engaged in unpaid care work compared to 3% of the men. While more men, that is 24%, than women, 13.8%, are engaged in paid care work activities and have access to the paid labor market. So unpaid care activities constitute time and energy consuming, which limit women's access to the labor market and relegating them to low income and insecure employment. So unpaid care work was recognized in the Global Agenda of 2020, where under Goal 5.4, it exclusively called upon countries to recognize and value, and I quote, recognize and value unpaid care and domestic work through the provision of public services, infrastructure, and social protection policies, and the promotion of shared responsibility within the household and the family nationally appropriate. If we come closer to home, we have the Employment Act of 2006, which makes provision for maternity and paternity functions, stipulating the right to maternity and paternity leave for employees. However, we also have Employment Amendment Bill of 2022, which is proposing to have maternity leave, the maternity leave period from 3 months to meet the 6-month International Labour Organization minimum. As a result of advocacy to enact this bill, it hasn't yet been enacted or approved, the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development was moved to develop breastfeeding regulations, that's to ensure employers, workplaces make provision for appropriate breastfeeding through policy and infrastructure. These regulations are now in draft. We also have, under the Market Bill of 2021, which was approved by Parliament, it will ensure that both private and public markets will be mandated to have childcare centers built for the market vendors for the women market vendors. So when we look at, many of us ask the question, so what? Unpaid care work definitely has an impact on our economy. Research has shown that unpaid care work is valued to be 10% and 39% of our gross domestic product. In countries like Argentina, their unpaid care work contributes 7% to the economy, while our neighbors, Tanzania, this unpaid care work contributes 63% to their economy. In Uganda, when a survey was conducted, 61% of women in Kampala, 33% in Kabong, and 30% in Kabale said they would rather spend time on income-generating activities than be engrossed in unpaid care work. So when we're addressing the issue of unpaid care work, adding on to the guest speaker's voice, we're looking at the 3R framework that seeks to define specific objectives of care interventions. And this is recognized, we need to recognize care at policy, community, and household level. We need to reduce difficult work, for example, through time and labor-saving technology and services, bringing the services closer for the women, especially those in rural areas. We have to ensure that the water points are brought closer, and not just water points, but access to safe water. And then redistribute the responsibility, costs, and work of care provision from women to men, employees, the state, and civil society. We also look at the fourth R, which is improve representation of carers in decision making, so that they can be more involved in policies that shape their lives and policies that reflect their needs and their interests. In the Western jurisdictions, there is a fifth R, and that is reward and remuneration for unpaid home caregivers. Is Uganda ready for the fifth R? So when we look at countries that have appreciated and recognized unpaid care work, in Pakistan, water sources were brought closer to home, which was associated with decreased time devoted to housework and increased female employment. In South Africa, when rural electrification was introduced, the time women spent on housework decreased, leading to a 9% increase in the female labor participation. In Zimbabwe, Africa's male empowerment project seeks to change behavior trends and challenge existing gender norms by increasing male involvement in home-based care services given to rural people living with AIDS. And Zimbabwe is one of the 5 countries in Africa, in addition to Uganda and Kenya, that have done real work on unpaid care work. So in Uganda, yes, we are making noise. We want it to be recognized, but we also have to take recognition of the organizations that are doing work in the background, like UONET. Between 2016 and 2018, they implemented a project in Lamore district where families were trained on unpaid care work and also trained to build and use energy-saving, eco-friendly cooking stoves. So the male engagement was a key element. So the one key observation from that pilot project was that because of the limited smoke emission from the stoves, the husbands and sons got more involved in preparing the meals. So that's a lesson we can transfer to other districts. In the private sector, I learned recently that Stanbic Bank opened up together with with an organization. They opened up the Gaba Market Early Childhood Development Center in Bunga. This facility was constructed and furnished to provide quality daycare services for families in the nearby Gaba Market with a clean, safe, and healthy environment in which children receive quality. Also, KCCA constructed a child care center at the new Kasubi market, which is a conducive and safe place for working mothers at the market, so they can go to work with their toddlers. As also told, the same is also in the one is from Europe or America or other countries. And that sums up my presentation.
Thank you for that presentation. Thank you for shedding light on what's happening out there. You know, when laws and policies start being made, we know that the storm of change is starting to brew. But what has to happen is that we need to know that the storm that is brewing is going to wash away only the undesirable qualities that we're having to live with right now. The things that Sheila complained about, the things like that Dr. Senyonyi complained about. We have to make sure that those things are being washed away and healthy practices are being adopted. Dr. Senyonyi told us about the policies at Bank of Uganda, the policy change that's been happening there. We've had a chance to hear from the Finance Trust Bank. Just this week, they had a conference with the Uganda Women's Network. And that's one end of the career scale on the one hand. I don't like to do a top to bottom scale, I'll just do end to end. And then we have the market communities that are adopting policies that bring us back to the same points that have been emphasized by the speakers. They say, recognize this work, redistribute it, reduce it. And with these organizations coming in and communities, what we have is actually representation on the ground, in the offices, and the laws that you're talking about that are changing and policies. Now we're at policy level. It is changing even on that level. So now we wait for the next one to take effect, which is the reward. Who's going to give this reward? How will it be done? That can come up in the panel discussion that's coming right up. And will it be effective? Is there a hope for these changes? What is the forecast? Every day we sit and watch weather forecasts on TV. So what is the forecast of this particular issue we are discussing, unpaid care and domestic work? Now, I'm going to invite the three panelists. Oh, sorry. I'm going to invite Catherine Mugabe to make her presentation as well. We've not yet heard from her. And after that, we'll have a panel discussion to sum this up, to put our heads together. We've heard from three different places. Now, the icing on the cake. Catherine, you're welcome.
Thank you, Cynthia, our moderator. I now can introduce myself. When I introduce myself, I do it before meets after. So my before is before I had children or before I became a stay-at-home mother. So I've been blessed to experience the workplace, the marketplace. I have worked as my first job. I was a project manager for the Global Fund project. I was then working with the Ndere Culture Center. I was in charge of all their projects, but particularly I was in charge of the Global Fund, and this helped me to move in different places of Uganda. And even before I had children, at least I could see the challenges in the communities. I then worked as a production officer at a publishing house, that's Baroque Publishers, and that's when I threw in the towel. We worked for long hours. I loved the job. Oh, maybe I should say that I studied mass communication and public relations, majored in public relations, did a bit of TV production. I also studied editing. So once in a while, I also do freelance writing for the New Vision, but on matters concerning the woman. So that is my before. I have experienced the marketplace. I enjoyed it, but what I didn't enjoy were the hours, the long hours, the schedules which were not flexible for me, especially after I had my second child. That's the time I decided that it couldn't work for me. The day I resigned, there was a young man who was my friend. And I had challenges. I had my first child, and then I was expecting my second. And you understand the blues of pregnancy? You understand it. So I came in at 9. We were supposed to be at work by 7:30. I came in at 9. Morning time is, honestly, it's draining for an early pregnancy. So I walked in and I was in bad shape. We were working on a bid for Ministry of Education, and my output was, I needed to be there. So I come in late, and this young man, he wasn't married, he definitely didn't have children. He's my friend. So because we now joke about it. He said, you know what? You have to learn to juggle. Juggle between family and work. How do you think the boardroom woman is handling it? At that point, I almost, like a volcano, I almost, just gave way. But I put it together and I said, you know what, young man, one day you'll reach there. And indeed, he did. When he did, he called me and said, Kathy, I respect women. So from that point, I realized that I couldn't give it my all to the workplace and also my home. It had to be one of them. I thank God that, like Cynthia was saying, when you have support, a good support system, it makes all the difference. Because I sat down with my husband. He's a lawyer by profession. Is it the right word? She knows better English than I do. By profession. And he said, you know what, if this is going to cause disorganization in our home, please take off some time, raise our children. I will go and do whatever I need to do, and whatever I bring, we'll share. Now, that is very good support system. And that's how I became. Now I can introduce my other part. I am a stay-at-home mother, proudly stay-at-home mother for now 13 years. I have been at home. I have 4 children. Just like Dr. Senyoni said, I have only one girl, and I am doing everything to empower her so that when she reaches the marketplace, she has no excuse of, I was the only child, or my mother was a stay-at-home mother. No, I empower her. If she needs to go and do something, I will empower her to go and do it. We do not have house helps in our house. So my children, when they come from school, we share the work. And that is work, that is reducing work, but also that is work redistribution. I'm now starting my presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a great honor to be surrounded by these powerful, powerful women to talk about this important topic. Our mothers, my mother wasn't, employed. She worked from home. I like when Dr. Senyonyi said that when you ask someone and they put it just right in your front, like, I'm just at home doing nothing. But I have seen my mother from the time I was a child up to today. My mother is over 80 years now. I'm the youngest at home, but I see up to today, she goes and works. The woman works to the extent that when people come and say, but your mother needs to stop working. But she tells you, when I stop working, then what? This is my exercise. How will my brain work? So you can imagine from the time I was born, my mother was working and she has not retired, So that's what I call powerful. For me, my mother is my hero. I always see, and no offense, Dr. Senyonyi, when they reward women for outstanding this, and they give out medals, on Women's Day, the women who dress up actually to go and celebrate a woman are the women who are up there. But there is a woman down there who is walking miles. There's a woman out there who wakes up at 5. By the way, my timetable, I wake up at 4:30 every day, and I go to bed at 10:30. From Monday to Sunday, because Sunday we have to wake up early to go to church, So that's my routine. And then you tell me, we're not fighting for medals, just so you know. We're not fighting for medals. There's no medal that can really even justify this work. But we are saying, can this woman be recognized? Can this sector be recognized? I am going to request the media team to please play the video. There's a video of a woman. I'm sorry, you see, I have a computer, please. Not because I'm a stay-at-home mother. I have a computer, I know the statistics, but Dr. Senyonyi has done my job pretty much, and Mrs. Anita also did that. Now, this is a typical village setting. We have children in a home, okay? We have the elderly. The woman you've just seen, she takes care of her mother-in-law, who is bedridden, who's been bedridden for quite some time. But she wakes up early morning, she goes to look for water because there is no water near her home. Then she goes to look for firewood, okay? But remember, she has left her mother-in-law at home who is sick. She has to keep on coming to check on her. Have you taken your medicine? Do you need anything? But at midday, she has children who come home for lunch. So she has to, her timetable, she has to divide it in such a way that she performs all these roles. But apart from that, she's doing other work. She has a small kiosk that she runs, and in that kiosk she sells tomatoes, which she has planted for herself, okay? She has some animals, okay? And she also has one cow. The money she gets automatically goes to home use. She buys books for her children. At times when her husband doesn't have the money, She goes an extra mile of going to look for medicine for her mother-in-law. She takes care of herself, and she also runs the home. Now, these are, I don't know who is counting. How many roles are we talking about? There's a nurse in there. There is, of course, what do they call nursery teachers? She's a teacher because she has to take care to mind the children. She has to cook because she doesn't have money to employ a housemaid. She also is an income earner. Okay, so we are talking about 8 roles in just one day, and all those activities, she performs them between 7 and 1. Okay, 7 and 1 p.m. She gets 1 hour of rest, that is eating lunch, because she has to tend to the animals in the evening, and then go to look for firewood. That is just one person. But there's also another lady. She's a civil engineer, Anne Akwaso. She's a civil engineer who quit her work because she has, I think, 3 children. She quit her work from the topmost telecom companies. Most sought out. We're talking about people who went to Namagunga. These are S students, okay? She quit her work to just take care of her children. Why? Because she had problems with maids. She would leave her children, and then at one time, I think they almost kidnapped her child or something like that. That is Anne Akwaso. There's another lady, I'll not mention names for purposes of sensitivity. She had a premature baby, okay? And she was working. I'm giving you all this so that you see, why do people leave employment? Why do people leave this paid work to be at home? I was about to say to sit at home. No, they are not sitting, they are working. So she had a premature baby, and I think at 6 months, the baby's feeding had to be so exact that she would measure the formula in a syringe, I think. It had to be in, what are they called? In meals, difficult things. Something that you cannot delegate to a house help or a housemaid. Something that no other person will do apart from you. Now, you cannot ask for permission from office to go and feed your baby all that time. What is the next best option? Is to just hang up the gloves. And she's now at home. She totally quit. I just wanted to let someone know who is listening, maybe a policymaker, I do not know. When you take off time, even for just one hour, or 1 year or 2 years, the chances of you going back to that job are minimal. Because they'll ask you, where have you been working for the last 6 months? And you say, I've been at home, taking a safe, please find your level. We have all wanted to go, because for me, my last born is right now in P1, and I can easily go back to work. Trust me, I've looked for jobs, and every time you present your CV, I have my first degree, and I worked a little bit, they'll say, we want someone who is more relevant, someone who is more up to date, Where am I going to get that CV when I have been at home? What are we calling for? We are calling the government. We are calling, what's the word? We just want to amplify that whoever is out there, consider this woman. These women do not have many chances of returning to school, because remember, by the time you even think of going back to school, your children are going to school. So there's fees competition there, You have one income already. The income is going to the fees of the school, of the children. Now, madam, you also want to study. Okay? And when you go to ask for a job, they'll say, we're looking for people who have masters, and these days people get PhDs when they are 23. I don't know how I am going to catch up with a 23-year-old, okay, by the time I do my PhD, because now I'm waiting for my children maybe to join, high school, so that I can go back to study. We have a statement we usually use here in Uganda, esente z'akameza. You cannot, because esente z'akameza, that one, it has a detailed budget, So you can't even say, let me save it and go to school. What are we saying? Can the government put things in place like scholarships? But you won't put them there when you don't know that there's this group in existence. So yes, can they first recognize that there's this group, that there is this sector, okay? After recognizing, can you put in place policies that are going to help add value to these women? Most people say that you're raising your own children. What do you mean? Yes, I'm raising, but these are the same children that are going to run this economy. In about, 15 years, I'm sure my daughter will be up there running the economy of this country. So you call her my child, but these are public children. We're just doing the job for the country. So let us recognize this woman. But also, Dr. Senyonyi and the previous speakers talked about empowerment, okay, and putting value and all those things. But let's look at the health of this stay-at-home mother. We're talking about women who are walking miles to look for firewood. They carry them on their heads. The water, they carry them maybe at their backs. I've seen some of them tie cloth and put the jerrycans at their backs. They are drowned. Sheila did not tell us, but I'm sure she does not have a washing machine. So I imagine the heaps and heaps of clothes, okay, that she has to wash day in, day out. Where are the health workers? We have always been told when you bend, your back will do this and do this and do this. But the woman in the village does not even have that knowledge that, okay, let me get a raised something, maybe a stool, and I sit, okay? Because they will not manage washing machines. They have to wash. But where's the information about my health, okay? We are cooking using firewood. Please, my husband, I'm not ashamed. We don't use firewood in our home. But I know because I have relatives who use firewood. I have realized that people in the village who use firewood, because of the smoke, they have a coating on their eyes. There's some gray coating on their eyes. Is there a scientist here? Carbon something? Those carbons that are produced from the firewood and all that science. I'm typically an artist, an arts student, so I don't know much of science. Yes, the toxins. Who addresses such issues? Okay. Anita Mwanguzi talked about Unpaid and how they introduced, I think, better methods of cooking. Right now we have people who are innovating better methods of cooking and better fuel, better energies. But how can these people access them? What is the accessibility? We are talking about if there are stoves, at what price does my grandmother, my mother, my auntie get such items in the village? Remember, they don't even have money. So even as we innovate, the government then needs to come in and stand in between and say, okay, you've innovated this product. By the time it reaches the person in the village, it will cost this. Let us subsidize. Let us supplement. So that we're now addressing the budget. We are calling upon the government. Can people get water? These are crucial things. I just wonder how in this age, in the 21st century, someone is still carrying jerry cans. And you know, let me just bring in this. Our president, whom I love dearly, one time said that our Mama Janet, never carried firewood, never carried water. Neither did she carry a child on her back. Wow, I loved him for that. He's such a man. For him to take care of his wife like that, I applauded him. Can we do that? We don't need push chairs, but can we have access to water? To clean water at that? Can we have access to better cooking fuels? Can we have better services? I have always listened to government and these, policymakers. We have a plan to do this. Let's not just stop in workshop rooms, in the confines of boardrooms and paper and computers and everything. Can we ensure that these things reach the person at the grassroots? I live in Kampala, okay? But there are things that I do not know about. Where I live, no one has even come to tell me about the parish model. Nobody. Nobody. So how, and for me, I'm a journalist, I can look for information, I read newspapers. But what is a woman who cannot read and write, and yet they're in Kampala? In the village, you can say they have an LC system that is, properly set up. But remember here, you live in Nalia, the next day you're in Kansanga, because you don't have a house of your own. How are they going to get that information? So let the flow of information, especially for government programs, let it reach the last consumer. In this particular case, we are talking about please recognize the stay-at-home mother. Let them get this information. Lastly, I'll just talk about the girl child. We've been singing girl child, girl child. My daughter the other day came and told me that her teacher calls her girl child. And everybody knows, I think even my grandmother who, passed, she would say girl child. But are we realistic? In Kampala, we live right now in spaces, in apartments. You cannot live with a 20-year-old, 25, in your apartment. You have 4 children, you live in an apartment, okay? And you bring an older person to come and take care of your home. That's incredible. Where will they stay? So we live in small spaces. The next best option is to go for those young girls, okay? Is to go for those young girls. I'm now talking about flexibility, schedules at work. When someone says, I do not have a maid, please, give me some flexibility. Let me come in at 9, do my work. Or today, let me work from home. COVID taught us. There are so many people that were working from home. Then what happened? And did the companies collapse? Then what happened? Why aren't we having the same? In fact, COVID, it was a blessing in disguise at some point, because it introduced working from home. And, some people, when I told they would say, oh, your organization is about working from home because of COVID. I said, no, this happened even before the pandemic. So why can't we have flex schedules to save that girl child, that little girl, from coming to Kampala to be a house girl? Because if I have flex schedules, then I will see. If I go to work at 9, or if I work from home and I have an interface of, about 2 days, that's not bad. I can manage. Flexibility. This is my last point. Moderator is looking at me. I'm completing this. In lockdown, I became an essential worker. No, I didn't have a government job. I still was a stay-at-home mother. But I became an essential worker. How? I had food that everybody wanted at that point. Nobody was leaving home and they needed the food. And I had a lot of food at the farm. I had every type of food. I had matoke, and that brought home, to my home, 1 media house, coming to ask me, how are you doing it? I became so essential and so important. I wasn't a stay-at-home mother that time. I became so important. Why? I was providing food, the most important aspect, the most critical item that every society needs. So, ladies and gentlemen, the stay-at-home mothers, the ones in the village, the ones in the town, they play important roles to support the economy. That if they were empowered, if they were given a little push, because they are better managers anyway, they are lawyers, they are accountants, they are judges, they are everything. So if you give them an empowerment, we'll go a long way. I thank you all. Thank you, the audience online and the people here. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Catherine. Wow. What I like about Kathy is when she speaks, her conviction will convince you, regardless of who you are or what your belief system is. She gets you on board. At the beginning of her discussion, you talked about the blues of pregnancy, and I realized there were some gentlemen online who would not know what the blues of pregnancy are, or young ladies who've probably not had children of their own. So what I like to do is to draw a mental image of what it is. I say, imagine the worst flu you have ever had, because we all know how badly flu affects men. I say, imagine the worst flu you have ever had. Add to that body aches and general lethargy, and also, and add that feeling you get when you've had a really bad meal and it's threatening to come back, like food poisoning if you had food. Imagine that every morning. And when you have that mental picture, you have just about 10% of what the blues of pregnancy is. And this is the life condition you're asking a woman to multitask with. Okay? And Kathy, you redistribute roles in your home. And that's awesome, because those children are learning right from very early on that this work can be done by everybody in the house. It's not just mommy's job. And for that purpose, I hope Daddy gets in on the action as well, of cleaning, because we are not going to. In our home, I tell my children that the only people that don't need to learn how to cook are people who don't eat. So they can fill in the blanks for themselves on that one. Now, I listened to you talking about all these things women do. You showed us a video of Mama Kenny. And I was thinking, I saw a silver lining. I said, the woman in the video and women out in the rural societies are able, not even rural societies, even here, women who work in banks or in corporate entities, they're able to do all these things, this back-breaking work. This work, like Anita said, even when you hire someone to do it, you have to supervise. And women still manage to get a longer lifespan than men. We tend to live longer than them. So I saw a silver lining because I said, men, come and save your lives. This redistribution is really for you. It's going to help you. You will live longer. You will stay active. Your life is really going to improve. Kathy, you talked about the exclusion of women, and you used a very specific example about the parish model. You said nobody has talked to you about it. Now, you in Kampala, in the middle of Kampala, you've not heard about it. There are women who do not have the access that you have. I personally heard about it from a Rotary meeting. Somebody came to address us on it. This is not information I looked for myself. It came to me, it found me where I was. So that brings back what every speaker has said. The me time, the reskilling, working on your circles, finding time to redefine your personality, who you are, the person that you are. And Sheila, you brought that out very strongly. Now, with all this going on, there is a chance, whether it starts with you or starts with other people. And we have reactions online from the audience that is online. They are sending in their experiences, and I'm going to share what Lillian said. She says, before she started working, she asked her husband to give her some little pay so that it could meet her needs. She has come to realize that some men don't think that these stay-home mothers have got needs to make their lives easy. And secondly, she distributes work amongst the people she has in her house. So it's not just the children, it's everybody in the household. I like that. And this really reduces a burden for her. and she thanks you for the presentations. Patience Tumuramie says, thank you ladies for being honest and courageous. This is a conversation that will change the game. Brian came in with a very interesting point of view when he says, thanks for the presentation. He says, to me, recognizing and boosting empowerment projects will cause engagement to both genders and it will lower the cause. I am hoping I understood that correctly. Maybe lower the burden, I hope. Perhaps, yes, we hope that's what he's saying. Yes. Diana Kisaka says, thank you, ladies. The experience sharing is very empowering. And Rebecca Mugabe echoes what she is saying. Patience comes back and says that society needs to appreciate that the decision to stay and work at home is as great as choosing to be an accountant in an office. Both are working to make a difference. That's an excellent point. Daisy Katushabe says the only place she can find for me time in her home is the bathroom. So she goes in and locks herself. This must be a familiar situation for many stay-home moms. Then she says, thank you, Sheila, for being vulnerable with us. She feels you. You touched her. You touched Daisy personally. And she says, shout out to all stay-at-home moms who are out there. Victoria Namyalo says, thank you, ladies, for this discussion. Then Esther Meda had quite a contribution. She feels that there is need to address challenges of postpartum depression and emotional health issues that arise from carrying all these roles. Kathy, you talked about it. Sheila, you talked about it. She's a stay-at-home mom living in a foreign country, and when she had just had her firstborn, she had postpartum depression and didn't realize what it was until she had her second child. Now, these children are years apart. That's when, so imagine living with that depression for years and not knowing it until it recurs in a different form. That's when she made an effort to fight it. It doesn't help that society basically makes it seem that stay-home moms do nothing. She feels it is specifically unfortunate to get that, especially from fellow women. So the enemy is not the other gender. The enemy tends to be someone from within your gender who probably has less to do than you, so will judge you on not keeping up with her. Yes, one of the things that has helped her first is recognizing depression for what it is and staying away from negative energy. To be exact, people that despise what my current stage in life is, finding joy in what I do. So she says, yes, it's mentally talking to yourself even when it's tight. Yeah. Sheila talked about missing being able to go out. And Esther says, Sheila, I feel you. Before she got married, she had a job, and yes, she did look down on stay-home moms. But right now, if she was to get a job again, she would make it her life mission to take out stay-home moms. Yeah? So this is one reaching out to others. That's fantastic. Sharon came back and says she's inspired. Vanessa said, wow, just wow. That's her comment. That's the whole of it. Mark and Tamara say that resting always feels like a crime. I don't know if you heard that, Mark and Tamara, but everybody agreed. They all went, So she said she even fails to get time for her phone. But when the baby says, thank you, mommy, or I love you, or giving her flowers, she melts and she's encouraged to keep working. So she says, thank you, that was amazing sharing. Esther comes back. I like Esther. She contributes quite a bit, yes? She says an emotionally draining role, and her experience has been to take a few minutes out with another woman. It can make your day. If there are any women out there that can take it up, do it. It's not always date night with your husband, and that we need that many times, but sometimes you just need girlfriend time. So Alex Mugabe says, well done, Mrs. Mugabe. That was eloquently articulated. Gabriela Mugabe says, I'm proud of you, mommy. Oh, that's fantastic. Yes. Thank you for your passion, Catherine Mugabe. That's from Patience Tumuramie. Sharon says she's so proud of you, Kathy Mugabe. Wow, You have quite the following here. Thank you. Thank you for rallying them. We have Sharon who says she thinks these are discussions that must be on the table in Parliament and in church as well. Because as we're doing policies from all angles, she's taking it everywhere. She's gone to Parliament, she's gone to church, and we've all said start at home. So the whole country is basically covered. That's fantastic. Lastly, we have Diana Kisaka, who works in the public sector and also has had no house help for a while, and she has 5 children. Planning and organizing as well as the use of simple technology has helped her a lot. Wow, those contributions are fantastic. You see, what this is telling us is people are not in this alone. I think the feeling of loneliness is expanded when everybody in their small cocoon thinks they're alone, and you're fighting it out alone. You had Esther say she was depressed for years. You had Sheila saying she misses going out. You've had Kathy talking about all the things that have to get done and the things she wants to do. She wants to go back to school. She wants to get back into the workforce. She wants to do things that she's standing on her own, she might not be able to do. But when you stand together with another woman, as they have said, it's very doable. It's quite possible, in fact. I wonder if I have any reactions from the panelists on what has been discussed. We'll go first, Dr. Senyonyi.
Thank you very much. This is so exciting, and I see a silver lining, as they call it. I think what sticks out most is the wellness of this woman, taking care of herself during this situation, first of all. So it's just important, as Sheila brought it out, that it's just important to know the value. Still takes up the woman's right. You know, what is this value that I have? I am not just nothing. I am nobody. I am someone. And you know, as we grow older, not many people will tell you that. Nobody will come. Like when you're 2, everybody says you're cute. You're doing everything so nicely. They pat you on the back. They say you look so nice, even when you are not looking nice. You draw a thing, a man who has no legs, and they say, wow, beautiful. So as you grow older and the kids grow older, nobody really says anything worthwhile to you. So we have to learn. This is part of the work that I do as a counselor, to help people feel that they have value. I am valuable, and that's it. And I think you've heard it through the testimonies of these lovely ladies, that wellness. So if need be, if you are depressed, like someone online said, seek for help. If you are not feeling fine, talk to a counselor. That's what we do. And you may get the help. It's not always going to be that your husband will be a supportive person, but you need to have others in your life that are supportive. Maybe it's a grandmother. I've been very supportive to my children. When they're feeling low, I come and take away the kids and look after them for a weekend. So have people that are supportive in that way. Where can you leave the children when you need to go out for a night, or you need to just be in the house with your husband? Give them away to someone that you trust. So build those support structures that are so important in our everyday life. Then the other thing that I noted was awareness at the 3 levels that we've been talking about: household level, community level, and national level. Now, we can't go to the national level before your household is aware of what's going on. So Cynthia talked about teaching everybody how to cook. Our tradition usually says girls have to cook. Why is it that girls are the ones that have to cook? I just got a picture from my husband. I told you I left him at home with some food cooked, but now the kids want matoke. So he was in the kitchen peeling matoke. And I'm like, okay, good. So it's like you have to teach everybody what to do from a very, very young age. And that's what we're saying. Redistribute, reduce, and use everybody at home so that they're aware that this work is done by everybody. And then we go to the communities. And this is where we say, where is the voice? Who are you talking to? And why are you talking to them? You know? Before we raise policies in Parliament, what have you done in the village there? Your neighbor. How are they raising kids? How are they making life simpler for themselves? And I also talked about your mother. You know, some of you, your mothers don't even have phones. You have a very expensive phone costing 3 million, but your mom does not have airtime, cannot even talk to you, doesn't have a phone. And then health services, this is something that is so essential because it takes up a lot of time. When you are ill, where do you go? What happens in that area? So those are the things that start. Each of these things I've talked about begin right from household to community to nation. So if I am in the community, I work with a bank. What have I done? What voice have I raised? What policy have I written? Because don't expect the ED to write a policy on breastfeeding. They don't know anything. In fact, when we were presenting that policy, they were, our executive directors are mostly men. And so they said, you have to remove these pictures. Because we had nice pictures of ladies breastfeeding. Of course, not so much showing of breast, but it was like, no, you can't have, they get offended. And so it's us who have to show this, what we need, Most workplaces need breastfeeding places. Most workplaces need, they call them what? Places where babies can be kept. Great. Nurseries, So I hear you. And this work is not going to end tomorrow. But I want to also address the reward part, which is still missing. So if we quantify, we're discussing this with my daughter, and she said, nobody's going to quantify this work for you. But it can be quantified, and it can be remunerated. It can be placed in laws so that when you retire, you have something to fall back to. So there is always some place to start. Is there something you're thinking about and putting on paper and saying, let the and now they are all ladies, the vice president, the prime minister, they might pick up some of the things that we're suggesting because they know what we're saying. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Senyonyi. Anita, let's have your remarks, please.
Well, mine will be very brief. We are basically echoing what everyone is saying, but I think the most important thing is for people to actually recognize domestic work, so that once we're able to recognize that, the burden is kind of laid off. The mothers, the wives, the sisters, the grandparents, and also we need to work, we all need to put our voices together. It's not the government, it's not the CSOs, it's not the companies, it's all of us. We all have to put in an effort to ensure that this is, we have a platform where we have these discussions with stay-home moms, the burdens they're going through. We need to hear their voices because the policies are going to come out from what they share, not from what the members of parliament think. Yeah, so that's my take home.
Thank you, Anita. We'll now have Kathy.
Thank you. I can see we have only 5 minutes to go, and I'll really wrap it up. I always like to tell these women that we are on stage, and therefore we need to perform and dazzle the audience. We can only dazzle the audience when we have support from everybody. When we work together, I always really feel so bad when a fellow woman puts me down. About last week, someone, a woman at that, said things which were, a bit, okay, I'm not going emotional here, but let's not weigh each other down. You can't, I don't know what you base on to say that just because I'm at home, I'm lazy, I'm not developing at the rate at which the other person is developing. I am in my own race. I have a lane that I am in. I will not cross over. I know what I have on my plate, and I will just take that. But also, even as we leave this place, let this conversation not just stop in this room. Let's further it. I have people, by the way, who are tuning in from the US, stay-at-home fathers at that, very successful. They wanted to contribute, but we had technical issues. And I believe this is just the beginning. I want to thank you all. I want to thank Mrs. Harriet Nyinomjun, who traveled all the way from Bushenyi to give support. I partly grew up in her house. She taught me the value of work. I also want to thank Mrs. Damba, who came from, I forgot it, from Kasangati to come and just support this cause. These are great women. I want to thank you, Dr. Ruth Senyonyi, for taking off your precious time. I'm feeling bad that we made, they are both doctors, the other doctor, to Pilmatoke for the grandchildren. But that's the support we need. That's the support we need. When my husband comes home in the evening and I am done, on the couch, or he says, what can I do? And he goes maybe to the sink and just does the dishes, and that makes it for us. I want to thank you all, dear presenters and moderator, for taking off your time and for making this happen. This is just the beginning. We are going to the Everest. Thank you.
Wow, thank you, Kathy. We came in as panelists. We are living as mountain climbers, going for Everest, the tallest one, but it's doable. I hope the take home for the online audience and the panelists that are here is that we have internalized what the 5 R's that can make unpaid care and domestic work valuable, that can improve the lot of women out there. That was recognize, redistribute, reduce, let's have representation, let's have a reward system where possible. And I would further reduce it to 3 words. When they say, ask for help. Whether this help is within your household and your family, whether it is from your community members, whether it is from legislators or from counselors who you can speak to when you feel alone, when you feel like life is beating you down and this role that you have taken on is a little too much for you, you can ask for help. As Dr. Senyonyi urged us, be the voice. God bless you as you go out and change the world. Thank you.